Good evening, all. This is Sine J. I'm a struggling actress in Atlanta. I wanted to say thank you to Senator Chris Dodd. Today, he stood in front of Congress and he asked for Congress to help in the fight for justice. And I'm not speaking of just any justice. I'm speaking of injustice that has come across America for hundreds of years. This gentleman stood in front of Congress, and this is a white gentleman, by the way, and said that it's now time for us to take some of this money out of this $700 billion and turn around and fight for the right for those who were killed, maimed, tortured because of the color of their skin. Again, there's so much that we don't know. There's so much history that has been blocked or erased that we as Americans don't know everything that has happened over a long period of time. But I know, like many, you have seen the shocking pictures of blacks being hung in trees or pulled apart or whipped or tortured or maimed or anything in any form of pain and torture or humiliation just for whites' pure enjoyment. It saddens me that our history has been erased. It even saddens me more that our children know so little about what we have had to go through, or what my parents and your parents and so on have had to go through just to be able to walk down the streets or to walk in the front door. Mr. Dobbs wanted us to turn around, or wanted Congress better, to turn around and to donate money to an investigation company or a corporation or a unit that will turn around and seek justice to those who felt that in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 30s and so on, that they could just take an African American male or female or child off the streets and kill and torture them and then hang them on a tree and take pictures of themselves so they can show their grandkids and such as enjoyment. Now, I've seen pictures like this. There are sites all over America that shows what has happened to some African Americans, and it saddens me still that, again, our future generations and our younger generations have no clue of what it took for them to be able to sit in the front seat, or to be able to ride a cab, or to be able to write a check, or to walk through the front door, or to be able to get the education that they now have. They have no clue, and they have no understanding of the sacrifices that was made just for them to be able to do it. He talked about, Mr. Dodd talked about a young little boy by the name of Till. And this little boy was visiting his people in Mississippi, and he saw a white lady. This is around, if I'm not mistaken, the 60s, or maybe even late 50s, and around in that time. And he made the mistake of whistling to her. And she, in return, in gratification actually, went to her husband and his friends and told them that a little Negro boy whistled at her. And they chased this little, if I'm not mistaken, he was a young boy, I don't even think he was in his teens, down, and they beat him to death. And I don't mean just beat him, I mean stomped his face literally flat, almost. To me, his face looked like a big quarter. It was so odd shaped. They stomped him to death. They cut him, they mutilated him, they scarred him, they tortured him. I think they even burned him. Now, Mr. Till is not in our history books, and just like so many, they're not in history books. If you pick up one of your children's history books, you will barely see a page on Martin Luther King or Medgar Evers, Harriet Tubman. We're literally being swept out of the door. We're allowing these people to take us out of the history books, and we need to stop that. We need to turn around and make our education look at what we have accomplished, look at what we've overcome, and look at who's died and suffered at the hands of others because of the color of our skin. We need to demand that they give us our due. Mr. Dodds asks that the Congress or government, if you prefer, turn around and make this unit possible, where we go back in time almost and go find these gentlemen and women and such who have done such heinous crimes as hanging, torturing, killing, and murder, and make them pay for what they've done. In my book, an eye for an eye, a life for a life. Now, of course, most of these people are too old or dead or lost in history somewhere, but there are a lot that aren't. And even today, there are people that are doing hate crimes, that it's time for us to turn around and stop this before it continues and it gets worse. We need to make our children, our future, and our younger generation understand what has happened to get us to this point, to allow us to be who we are at the sacrifice of lives, white and black, and of other races. But our younger generation aren't aware of people like Edgar King or Till or Tubman, believe it or not. They aren't aware of anything other than what they see today on television. And these are their heroes. These are their stars. These are the people that they look at. And not to take away from our actors or rap stars and such, but again, these people open doors. But before them, who opened the door first? So we need to turn around and tell Congress, get off your ass and make these people who have done these heinous crimes pay and suffer. Get off your ass and make sure those who are still cops, firefighters, whoever, just because of the person's color of their skin or sex, have no right to be treated as a human being or as an equal. Make these people understand that we will no longer tolerate your injustice or your hate or anything of that nature, not even your evilness. To be shot in the doorway 41 times, come on people, we need to stand the hell up. I want to thank you, Mr. Dodds. Of course, you will probably never see this, but still, Senator, you get all my props and you get all my respect. I'm sure you're one man against many who could care less about what has happened to our nation or what has happened to our past history or what has happened to our African American kings and queens who sacrificed every day just so we can sit here today and say thank you. I want you to know that I'm very grateful. There are very few of any race other than Mr. Sharpton and others and such, who, Mr. Jackson as well, who fight. There's so few of us left because our younger generation has so lack of respect of what's going on and so lack of respect of what's happening, and money being such an envy to those now that they have lost sight of what is truly a need in our country, and that's to bring ourselves out of the hole that we have gotten ourselves into, or we have put ourselves in, or we have allowed ourselves to be put in, and that we need to stand up and say, you know what, this is not going to happen anymore. I am proud of who I am. I am proud of the color of my skin, and damn it, you and no one else will make me feel any less than. We need to make sure that Congress, government, and others alike understand that if you do wrong by me because of the color of my skin, you will suffer as much as you tried to make me suffer. And again, we need to stand up and we need to make sure that our history books repeat history word for word correctly and not erase our history. Because once we are totally gone and wiped out of the books, what will we have left to tell our future and our younger generations of today and of tomorrow? Again, Mr. Dodds, I want to thank you so much for your effort. It's probably in vain, but still there are some of us who are very honored that Senator Dodd stood in front of Congress to fight for our rights and for our right to our history. Thank you. This is Sanae J., a struggling actress in Georgia. Good night.